I never expected divorce papers to be the easy part. When Marcus showed up at my door with roses and a smile, saying he was getting married again, my heart stopped. Then he said the name. My sister Emily, the woman who held my hand through our divorce, was now stealing my ex-husband. I'm Natalie Chen, a dental hygienist from Portland, and this is how I made them both pay. The roses at my door. I was in my kitchen making tea when the doorbell rang. It was a Tuesday afternoon, my day off, and I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked to the front door, thinking maybe it was a package or one of my neighbors asking to borrow something. But when I opened the door, there he was, Marcus, my ex-husband, standing on my porch with a bouquet of red roses in his hands and that same charming smile he used to give me when we were happy, when I still believed in us. "Hey, Nat," he said, like we were old friends catching up after a coffee date. My stomach dropped. We hadn't spoken in almost 6 months, not since our divorce was finalized 2 years ago. I'd worked hard to move on, to rebuild my life without him. Seeing him there felt like someone had ripped open an old wound I thought had healed. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my hand on the door frame. I didn't invite him in. I didn't want him in my space. "I wanted to talk to you," he said. "Can I come in? Just for a minute?" I should have said no. I should have closed the door and locked it. But curiosity got the better of me. What could he possibly want after all this time? I stepped aside and let him in. He walked into my living room like he'd been there 100 times before, even though this apartment was new. I'd moved here after the divorce to start fresh, away from the house we'd shared. "I wanted to tell you something before you heard it from someone else," Marcus said, setting the roses on my coffee table. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. Marcus was always confident, always in control. "Okay," I said slowly, crossing my arms. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "I'm getting married again." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't that I still loved him. I didn't. But hearing that he was moving on, that he'd found someone else while I was still trying to figure out how to trust people again, it hurt more than I expected. "Congratulations," I managed to say, though my voice sounded hollow. "There's more," he said, and the look on his face made my skin crawl. "It's Emily." Time stopped. The room spun. I grabbed the back of the couch to steady myself. "What did you just say?" "Emily and I are getting married," he repeated, softer this time, like saying it quietly would make it hurt less. "I know this is hard to hear, but we fell in love. It just happened, Nat. We didn't plan it. Emily, my little sister. The woman who held my hand through every terrible moment of my divorce. The one who brought me soup when I couldn't eat. Who let me cry on her couch until 3 a.m. Who told me I deserved better than Marcus, and now she was marrying him. "Get out," I whispered. "Nat, please." "Get out of my house," I shouted, my voice breaking. He left the roses and walked out without another word. I stood frozen in my living room, staring at the red flowers on my table, and felt my entire world collapse around me. Emily's silence speaks volumes. I called Emily 17 times that night. 17. Each call went straight to voicemail. I texted her, asking her to explain, to tell me Marcus was lying, to tell me anything that made sense. But she didn't respond. I sat on my couch with my phone in my hand, refreshing my messages every few seconds, hoping to see those 3 little dots that meant she was typing. But there was nothing. Just silence. Around midnight, my phone finally buzzed. A text from Emily. "Can we talk tomorrow? I'm sorry, Nat." That was it. No explanation, no defense, just "I'm sorry." I threw my phone across the room and buried my face in my hands. Sorry? Sorry didn't even begin to cover what she'd done to me. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying every conversation I'd had with Emily over the past 2 years. I remembered sitting in her apartment the night Marcus served me with divorce papers. I'd been a mess, crying so hard I couldn't breathe, mascara running down my face, my hands shaking as I held the papers. Emily had wrapped me in a blanket, made me chamomile tea, and told me over and over that it wasn't my fault, that Marcus was the one who'd ruined everything, that I was strong and would get through this. "You deserve someone who treats you right," she'd said, rubbing my back while I sobbed. "Marcus is an idiot for letting you go." And now she was marrying him. She knew everything. She knew how Marcus had cheated on me with a coworker. She knew how he'd emptied our joint bank account before filing for divorce, leaving me with almost nothing. She knew how broken I'd been, how I'd spent months in therapy trying to put myself back together. And somewhere along the way, While I was grieving, she'd decided to take him for herself. I grabbed my phone from where it had landed on the floor and scrolled through old messages between me and Emily. That's when I noticed something I hadn't paid attention to before. 6 months ago, her texts had changed. She stopped asking how I was doing. She stopped inviting me over. Our conversations became shorter, more distant. I thought she was just busy with work, but now I understood. She'd been pulling away because she was hiding something. She was hiding him. I thought about all the times I'd cried on her shoulder, all the times she'd told me I was better off without Marcus. Had she already been with him then? Had they been laughing at me behind my back? My phone buzzed again, another text from Emily. I know you're angry, but please let me explain. It's not what you think. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Fine, tomorrow. Your place, 10 a.m. I hit send and tossed my phone aside. I didn't want to hear her excuses, but I needed to look her in the eye and understand how the person I trusted most in the world could betray me like this. The photos I shouldn't have seen. I couldn't wait until 10 a.m. By 3 in the morning, I was wide awake, sitting in my living room with my phone in my hand, scrolling through old photos. I needed to know when this started. I needed to see if there were signs I'd missed. I went through hundreds of pictures. Birthday parties, family dinners, holidays. Every photo from the past 3 years. And then I found it. My birthday party, 3 years ago. Marcus and I were still married then, still pretending everything was fine, even though I knew deep down something was wrong. In the photo, I was standing in the center with my birthday cake, smiling at the camera. But in the background, barely visible, were Marcus and Emily. She had her hand on his shoulder. They were standing close, too close, and they were both looking at each other, not at me. My chest tightened. I zoomed in on the photo, studying their faces. They looked comfortable together, familiar. I kept scrolling. There were more. At my mom's 4th of July barbecue, Marcus and Emily were sitting next to each other at the picnic table. Their heads tilted toward each other like they were sharing a secret. At Thanksgiving dinner, Emily was handing Marcus a drink, and their fingers touched for just a second too long. How had I not seen this? How had I missed all these moments? I went to my deleted messages next. I rarely cleared my texts, but sometimes my phone would automatically delete old conversations to save space. I dug through the archive until I found a message thread with Emily from 2 years ago. One message stood out. It was from the week before Marcus asked for a divorce. We have to be more careful around her. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Emily had sent that message to someone, and now I knew who. They'd been together before the divorce. The affair had started while I was still married to him, while I was still sleeping next to him every night, making him breakfast, planning our future. And Emily had known. She'd been part of it. I thought about all the times Marcus had come home late, claiming he was working. All the times he'd been distant and distracted. I'd asked him if something was wrong, if there was someone else, and he'd looked me in the eye and said no. But there was someone else. And it was my sister. Everyone had acted like I was paranoid. Marcus had made me feel crazy for questioning him. My mom had told me I was being insecure. Even my friends had said I was overreacting. But I'd been right all along. And now I had proof. I saved every photo, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I could find. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I needed it. I needed something to hold on to, something that validated the anger and pain I was feeling. By the time the sun came up, I'd been through everything, and I knew the truth. Emily and Marcus hadn't fallen in love after my divorce. They'd been together all along. She'd betrayed me long before he ever did. Mom takes Emily's side. I didn't go to Emily's apartment at 10 a.m. Instead, I drove to my mom's house. If anyone would understand how devastating this was, it would be her. She'd raised us. She knew how close Emily and I had always been. She'd know what to say. Mom's car was in the driveway when I pulled up. I walked to the front door and knocked, my heart pounding. She opened the door with a smile, but it faded the moment she saw my face. Natalie, what's wrong? I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Did you know? Her smile disappeared completely. She closed the door and crossed her arms. Know what? About Emily and Marcus. There was a pause. A long, terrible pause. And in that silence, I got my answer. You knew, I whispered. You knew, and you didn't tell me. Natalie, sit down. Let's talk about this calmly. No, I shouted. I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me how long you've known that my sister is marrying my ex-husband. Mom sighed and rubbed her temples like I was giving her a headache. Emily told me a few weeks ago. She was nervous about how you'd react. How I'd react, I repeated, incredulous. Of course I'm reacting badly. She's marrying the man who destroyed me. Natalie, that's not fair, Mom said, her voice firm. Marcus didn't destroy you. You're still here, you're still standing, and Emily deserves to be happy too. I felt like I'd been slapped. Emily deserves to be happy. What about me? You need to move on, Mom said. It's been 2 years since your divorce. You can't hold on to this anger forever. I stared at my mother, the woman who was supposed to protect me, who was supposed to be on my side, and I watched her choose Emily over me in real time. She was with him before the divorce, I said, my voice shaking. They were having an affair. She lied to me, Mom. She sat with me while I cried over him, and the whole time she was sleeping with him. Mom looked uncomfortable, but didn't back down. People make mistakes, Natalie. Emily feels terrible about how this happened, but they're in love. You can't stand in the way of that. I'm not standing in the way, I said. I'm just asking you to see how wrong this is, how much it hurts. I do see it, Mom said. But I also see that you're letting bitterness control you. Emily is your sister. She's family. You need to forgive her and move forward. Forgive her? I laughed bitterly. She's planning a wedding, Mom, to my ex-husband, and you're okay with that? Mom reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. I'm going to the wedding, she said. And I think you should too. Don't make a scene. Don't ruin this for Emily. I felt my heart break all over again. My own mother was asking me to stand aside and watch my sister marry the man who'd betrayed me. She was choosing Emily's happiness over my pain. I need to go, I said, turning toward the door. Natalie, don't leave like this. But I was already gone. I walked out of that house, realizing I had no family left who cared about what I was going through. They'd all chosen Emily. And I was completely alone. The lawyer's unexpected advice. I drove straight from my mom's house to Sarah Mitchell's office. Sarah had been my divorce lawyer, and she was the only person I could think of who might help me make sense of this nightmare. Her assistant let me in right away when I said it was urgent. Sarah looked up from her desk when I walked in, concern crossing her face. Natalie, what's going on? I sat down across from her and told her everything. About Marcus showing up with roses, about Emily, about my mom taking their side. By the time I finished, I was shaking. Is there anything I can do? I asked. Legally, I mean, can I stop this? Sarah leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her desk. Unfortunately, no. You can't stop two adults from getting married, even if it's morally questionable. My heart sank. So there's nothing? I didn't say that, Sarah said, a small smile playing at her lips. She pulled open a file cabinet and retrieved a thick folder. My divorce file. She flipped through the pages until she found what she was looking for. Do you remember this clause? She asked, pointing to a section of the divorce agreement. I leaned forward to read it. The legal language was dense, but one sentence stood out. If either party enters into a new marriage within 3 years of the finalization of this divorce, the other party is entitled to 50% ownership of any business assets acquired during the original marriage. I looked up at Sarah, confused. I don't understand. What does this mean? It means, Sarah said, her smile widening, that if Marcus remarries before the 3-year mark, which would be next April, you're entitled to half of his business. My mind raced. Marcus had started his tech company while we were married. I'd supported him through the early years, working extra shifts at the dental office to cover our bills while he built his startup. By the time we divorced, the company was just beginning to take off. How much is his company worth now? I asked. Sarah pulled up something on her computer. According to the latest business filings I can access, his company is valued at approximately $2.3 million. My jaw dropped. $2.3 million? Give or take, Sarah said. And Marcus insisted on including that remarriage clause during your divorce negotiations. He probably thought you'd be the one to remarry first. He never expected it would come back to bite him. I sat back in my chair, my mind spinning. Marcus had no idea. He thought he was moving on with his life, marrying my sister, getting his happily ever after. But he'd forgotten about the clause he'd put in our divorce agreement. So what do? I asked. Sarah's smile turned sharp. Let him marry her. Don't say a word. Don't warn him. Just wait. And the moment they say, I do, we file the paperwork claiming your 50%. For the first time since Marcus showed up at my door, I felt a spark of something that wasn't pain or anger. I felt hope. And something darker, something that tasted like revenge. How soon can we move on this after the wedding? The morning after, Sarah said. We'll have everything ready to go. By the time they're on their honeymoon, Marcus will be getting a very unpleasant surprise. I thought about Emily crying on his shoulder. I thought about my mom telling me not to make a scene. I thought about everyone choosing them over me. Let's do it, I said. Sarah extended her hand, and I shook it. For the first time in days, I smiled. A real smile. Marcus and Emily had no idea what was coming, and I was going to make sure they never saw it coming. Playing the perfect sister, I called Emily that afternoon. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number, but I forced my voice to stay calm and steady. Nat, she answered on the second ring. She sounded cautious, nervous. Hey, I said, trying to sound tired rather than furious. Can we meet up? I want to talk. Of course, Emily said quickly. Do you want me to come to you? No, I'll come to your place. Give me an hour. When I arrived at Emily's apartment, she opened the door with red-rimmed eyes. She'd been crying. Good. Nat, I'm so sorry, she said immediately, reaching for me. I let her hug me. I even hugged her back, though every fiber of my being wanted to push her away. Can we sit down? I asked. We sat on her couch, the same couch I'd cried on so many times after my divorce. The irony wasn't lost on me. I need you to understand something, Emily started, her voice trembling. Marcus and I didn't plan this. It just happened. We tried to fight it, but I know, I interrupted, keeping my voice soft. I was angry at first. I'm not going to lie, but I've had time to think about it. Emily looked at me with hope in her eyes. Really? Really, I said, though the word tasted like poison. You're my sister, and if you love Marcus, if he makes you happy, then I want you to be happy. Emily burst into tears and threw her arms around me. Thank you, she sobbed. Thank you so much. I was so scared I'd lost you. I patted her back, letting her cry. Inside, I was calculating. I was planning. I was preparing. I want to help, I said when she finally pulled away. With the wedding? Let me help you plan it. Are you sure? Emily asked, wiping her eyes. I don't want to put you through that. I'm sure, I said, forcing a smile. It'll be good for me. Closure, you know? Emily smiled through her tears and grabbed my hand. You're the best sister ever. No, I thought, I'm not. But you're about to find out just how far I'm willing to go. Over the next hour, Emily showed me everything. The venue they'd picked, the color scheme, the guest list. And then she showed me her ring. It was beautiful. A princess-cut diamond in a platinum setting, the exact style I'd shown Marcus years ago when we were engaged. The ring I'd dreamed of but never gotten because we couldn't afford it back then. Now he could afford it, and he'd given it to Emily. It's beautiful, I said, and I meant it. It was beautiful, and it was supposed to be mine. I knew you'd understand eventually, Emily said, squeezing my hand. Marcus said you would. He said you were always so kind and forgiving. I smiled and nodded, but inside I was screaming. Every word of support I gave her was poison wrapped in sweetness. Every smile was a mask hiding the rage underneath. They had no idea what was coming, and I was going to enjoy every second of watching their world fall apart. The secrets Marcus kept. I met with Sarah the following week to discuss strategy. She'd been doing some research on Marcus's business, and what she'd found was even better than we'd hoped. I hired a private investigator, Sarah said, sliding a manila folder across her desk to me. Take a look. I opened the folder and started reading. Inside were financial records, email transcripts, and bank statements. Marcus's business wasn't just successful, it was about to explode. But there was more. The investigator had uncovered something interesting. Marcus was hiding assets. He'd set up offshore accounts and was preparing to sell the company for far more than the $2.3 million it was currently valued at. He's trying to move money before you can claim it, Sarah explained. If he sells the company before the remarriage clause kicks in, he can move the profits offshore and claim the business is worth nothing by the time you file. Can he do that? I asked, my stomach sinking. He's trying, Sarah said. But here's the thing. If he marries Emily before he completes the sale, You have claim to half of everything, including the offshore accounts and the pending sale. I looked up at Sarah. How much are we talking? If the sale goes through, close to $5 million, maybe more. I sat back in my chair, stunned. $5 million. Marcus was about to become a multimillionaire, and Emily had no idea. Does Emily know about any of this? I asked. Sarah shook her head. From what the investigator could tell, Marcus has been keeping her in the dark about the finances. She thinks she's marrying a moderately successful businessman. She has no clue he's about to be filthy rich. A dark satisfaction settled over me. Emily thought she was getting a prize. She thought she'd won. But she was marrying a man who was keeping secrets from her, just like he'd kept secrets from me. What do we do? I asked. We wait, Sarah said. We let the wedding happen. We let Marcus think he's gotten away with everything. And then, the morning after they say, I do, we strike. We file the paperwork claiming your 50%, and we freeze his assets before he can move anything offshore. What if he tries to back out of the wedding? I asked. Sarah smiled. That's why you're playing the supportive sister. You're making sure this wedding happens. The more comfortable he feels, the less likely he is to postpone or call it off. I nodded slowly. I'd been doing exactly that, helping Emily pick out flowers, taste wedding cakes, choose a venue. Every time Marcus saw me with Emily, he relaxed a little more. He thought he'd won. He thought I was broken and defeated. But I wasn't broken. I was calculating. And when the time came, Marcus was going to lose everything. There's one more thing, Sarah said. The investigator also found evidence that Marcus has been cooking the books, falsifying revenue reports, hiding expenses. If this goes to court, he could face criminal charges. I looked down at the folder in my hands. Marcus wasn't just a cheater and a liar. He was a criminal. And Emily had no idea what kind of man she was about to marry. It's the wedding I helped plan. The next 2 months were some of the hardest of my life. I smiled when I wanted to scream. I hugged Emily when I wanted to shake her. I made small talk with Marcus when I wanted to tell him exactly what was coming. But I played my part perfectly. I went dress shopping with Emily and helped her find a beautiful white gown that made her look like a princess. I helped her choose flowers, white roses and lilies. I tasted wedding cakes and gave my opinion on vanilla versus chocolate. Marcus thanked me one afternoon when I ran into him at Emily's apartment. You're being really mature about all this, Nat, he said. Not a lot of people would be as understanding. I smiled and shrugged. Emily's my sister. I want her to be happy. You're a good person, Marcus said, and I wanted to laugh in his face. I watched them kiss at their engagement party and raised my glass in a toast. To love, I said, my smile bright and fake. Everyone clapped. Emily cried happy tears. Marcus looked proud. No one suspected a thing. As the wedding date got closer, I noticed something interesting. The calmer I became, the more confident Marcus got. He started talking about their honeymoon. 2 weeks in Bali. He mentioned buying a house, maybe starting a family. He had no idea that in just a few weeks, his entire world would crumble. The night before the wedding, Emily called me in tears. What if something goes wrong? She asked. What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if Marcus realizes he's making a mistake? Nothing's going to go wrong, I assured her. Tomorrow is going to be perfect. And I meant it. Tomorrow would be perfect, just not in the way she thought. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. I'd become someone else over the past 2 months, someone harder, someone colder, but I didn't care. They'd made me this way. I picked up my phone and texted Sarah. Everything's ready? Her response came seconds later. Paperwork's prepared. We file first thing after the ceremony. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day. I set my phone down and lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, Marcus and Emily would get married. They'd exchange vows, kiss in front of all their friends and family, and think they'd gotten away with everything. And then I'd take it all away. I fell asleep that night with a smile on my face. For the first time since Marcus had shown up at my door with roses, I felt at peace, the day of reckoning. The wedding was beautiful. Emily looked stunning in her white dress, walking down the aisle toward Marcus, who stood at the altar with tears in his eyes. My mom cried. Marcus's parents cried. Everyone looked so happy. I sat in the 3rd row, wearing a pale blue dress and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I watched them exchange vows, watched Marcus slip the ring onto Emily's finger, watched them kiss as husband and wife. and I waited. The reception was held at a vineyard outside the city. There was champagne, dancing, and speeches about love and commitment. Marcus's best man made a joke about how lucky Marcus was to find someone as amazing as Emily. My mom gave a tearful speech about family and second chances. I raised my glass and applauded with everyone else. When Marcus and Emily cut the cake, I took a photo. When they had their first dance, I smiled and clapped. I played my part perfectly until the very end. The reception ended around 10 p.m. Marcus and Emily left in a shower of rice and confetti, heading to a hotel before their flight to Bali the next afternoon. I drove home, changed into comfortable clothes, and waited. At 8 a.m. the next morning, Sarah called me. "It's done," she said. "Paperwork's filed. Marcus's assets are frozen. He can't touch anything." "How long until he finds out?" I asked. "He probably already has. His lawyers would have been notified within the hour." I hung up and waited. I didn't have to wait long. My phone rang at 8:30. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" "What the hell did you do?" Marcus screamed. His voice was raw, panicked. "Good morning to you too," I said calmly. "You filed a claim against my business. My lawyers just called. What are you doing?" "I'm collecting what's owed to me," I said. "Remember that remarriage clause you put in our divorce agreement? The one that said if either of us remarried within 3 years, the other gets half of your business? Well, congratulations on your marriage. I'll take my 50% now." There was silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "You can't do this." "I already did," I said. "And by the way, my lawyers found some very interesting things about your business dealings. Offshore accounts, hidden assets, falsified records. You might want to call a criminal defense attorney while you're at it." Marcus made a sound like a wounded animal. "Natalie, please, we can work this out. I'll give you money. Just drop the claim." "No," I said simply. "This will ruin me." "Good," I said, and hung up. 20 minutes later, Emily showed up at my apartment. Her makeup was smeared, her hair a mess. She was still wearing her going-away outfit from the night before. "How could you?" she screamed the moment I opened the door. "We can't afford our honeymoon now. Marcus is losing everything." I looked at my little sister, the woman who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Welcome to my world," I said. "Enjoy your marriage." I closed the door in her face and locked it. She pounded on it for a few minutes, screaming and crying, but eventually she left. I sat on my couch and allowed myself to smile, really smile. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I'd gotten justice. They'd taken everything from me, and now I was taking it all back, the woman I became. The next few months were chaos. Marcus's business sale fell through when the buyers discovered his fraudulent accounting. The SEC opened an investigation, and within 6 weeks, Marcus was facing criminal charges for tax evasion and financial fraud. Emily filed for divorce after 4 months of marriage. She showed up at my door one night, looking thin and exhausted. "You were right," she said quietly. "About everything. Marcus lied to me about the money, about the business, about everything. I didn't know any of it." "I know," I said. "I didn't invite her in." "I'm sorry," Emily whispered. "For all of it. I never should have—" "No," I interrupted. "You shouldn't have." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about it, really thought about it, and then I shook my head. "No," I said. "Some things are unforgivable. You knew what Marcus did to me, and you chose him anyway. You don't get to come back now that he's ruined your life too." Emily's face crumpled, but I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. My mom called a week later. "Natalie, we need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." "I was wrong," Mom said quickly. "I should have supported you. I should have seen how much Emily hurt you. I'm sorry." "Thank you for the apology," I said. "But some betrayals can't be forgiven. You chose Emily over me when I needed you most. I won't forget that." "Natalie, please." I hung up. I used my settlement money, nearly $1.8 million after legal fees and taxes, to open my own dental practice. It was something I'd always dreamed of, but never thought I could afford. Now I had the means to do it. I hired a great team, built a beautiful office, and within 6 months, we were booked solid. Patients loved us. The business thrived. One afternoon, about a year after the wedding, I was closing up the office when I saw my reflection in the glass door. I looked different, stronger, confident, happy. I thought about the woman I'd been 2 years ago, broken, defeated, crying on Emily's couch. That woman was gone. In her place was someone who'd survived betrayal, planned her revenge, and come out stronger on the other side. I'd lost my sister, my mother's trust, and my ex-husband, but I'd gained something far more valuable: myself. Looking back, I realized their betrayal had given me the freedom to become someone I'd never been before. Someone who didn't let people walk all over her. Someone who stood up for herself. Someone who didn't need family or a husband to feel complete. I locked the office door and walked to my car, feeling the warm evening air on my face. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough. Marcus ended up serving 18 months in federal prison for fraud. Emily moved across the country to start over. My mom still calls occasionally, but I rarely answer. I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. They taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. And when they do, you have every right to fight back. I'm Natalie Chen, and this is how I made them both pay.